kids like getting involved in your classroom and showing up and all that? Well, because we're doing something that they're interested in. You know the difference, right? We all know the difference. And we know with service learning, for example, if kids care about what they're learning, how much easier is it to reach and teach them? If they don't care about it, how hard is it? So if we look at engagement as getting them to care about something, whether it's the world around them, something in their community, something they care about, they're yours. And that's how we look at engage and inspire. Daniel Peake also said we're bribing students into compliance instead of challenging them into engagement. You know, I saw this with my own daughters, who are now in their 20s. But my daughter was so bored in high school. She was just bored to literal tears. And finally, she had a teacher who challenged her. She worked harder for that teacher, and she went above and beyond every time. Teenagers want to know who they are. That's their job, especially in adolescence. Who am I? And they need real things to come up against to see who I am in the first place. Critical part of learning. So we look at this word responsibility, which is another part of trust. But to me, the word responsibility really means to take out the garbage and do your homework on time. To me, we have to reframe that word. We have to look at it in this shape, responsibility. We want young people to have the ability to respond to situations, to needs around them, to be able to be proactive, to take initiative, and to be thoughtful so that they're really doing things that matter, and we support them in that process. If with trust, we can make that happen. So learning is a social experience. And in a lot of schools, kids are needing to be quiet too much of the day. Think about it. So in a lot of the schools that are here, this is why you're here, you take a more progressive look, and kids are more social during school. Is that right? Right. But can you remember or imagine schools where that does not place at all? Where kids are quiet most of the day? Can kids learn if they're not talking to somebody else? How many of you would like to be quiet for 8 hours a day? Is anybody here capable of that? That's why I got in trouble in school all the time. Trust is a social feature that enables group members to achieve a common purpose. So it's a social feature. So young people need what I call social relief. Even in the midst of a very tense lesson, they need to turn to someone, they need to talk, they need to think, they need to figure things out. Learning is social. We need to create opportunities for young people to be social, especially when they least expect it. Without trust, students divert their energy towards self-protection. So if you see kids being defensive, they're probably in an environment where someone's not trusting them. And kids, do you have kids like that who are walking with 2 fists up to start with? So it's a self-protection that they have to go to because they're not in an environment where they're being trusted. Trust builds on itself. So higher student achievement will breed more trust and vice versa. Achievement, trust is a positive indicator of student achievement, and that to me is most interesting. That's part of why we really need to look at it. It's a positive indicator of social student achievement, and the amount of trust teachers have in students and parents outweighs the effects of poverty. That's pretty profound. Just that one statement, if we looked at that in schools where young people are really not trusted and not achieving, what is really going on? So a couple of researchers have been interested, and one of them is Sugata Mitra, and I've heard that some of this research some people were wondering about, but I think the story is worth sharing, and I'll deal with that later. He started something called a hole in the wall in India, where he put in computers in holes in a wall that couldn't be removed, and young people could go by and just learn. Isn't that interesting? I'm going to have to read some of the stats on this because I'm still coming off of a cold and I just can't remember all of it. So they put this, after 4 hours of this, kids could browse, record their own music, and they played it back for each other. In Hyderabad, India, they gave children with a heavy accent a computer with speech to interact with. They couldn't do it because they weren't understood by the computer. He left the computer there for 2 months. They taught themselves to be understood by the computer. That means they taught themselves how to speak with a neutral British accent. He gave 26 12-year-olds a computer with basics of biotechnology on it in English. These were kids who did not speak English. He returns in 2 months. When asked if they learned anything, a girl pipes up, apart from the fact that improper replication of the DNA molecule causes genetic disease, we've understood nothing else. They got 30% scores on biotech exams. This other one I thought was also interesting. They have a method called grandmother. They found out that children actually do better learning with a grandmother than with a teacher. Now, what does that mean? with the teacher, the teacher's with the students, and the teacher knows the content area. The kid knows the teacher knows it, so they don't have to work so hard. But if sitting next to them, I'm not thinking of you as a grandmother, but if next to them is a grandmother type who doesn't know the information, the student has to work hard to do what? To teach it. So they actually learn better if they know somebody's relying on them to teach them. What does that tell you about service learning as a concept? Isn't that interesting? Is this interesting?
Yeah.
I am. I really want to keep excited. That's why my publisher today said she wants to do this book. I'm very excited. I'm very excited. So I'm going to skip this one guy. So service learning, these are just images of kids doing service around the world. We know that kids dive in literally and can make things happen. Kids can really do things. When we get out of the what? Way. We provide the support, the guidance. Adults have a critical role, but if we trust young people to go a little bit further than without the trust. So it is an essential ingredient for service learning. So we're going to look at how do we build trust, more trust in our service learning programs by allowing for more youth voice and choice. All right? How are we doing so far? In your handouts, let's open your handouts. You've got another sheet. This is my new design for service learning. The work on this for a while, I just kind of finished it in December. But you know, we talk about service learning as the 5 stages. If you're not familiar with this, now you will be. There are 5 stages of service learning. The first one, as you'll see on the list, is investigation. Kids have to investigate. We're going to dissect that in a minute. They prepare, they take action, they reflect, and they do demonstration. That's a straight line, it looks like, but it's a really different dynamic. So I created this visual to help you see it more effectively. In the very middle, as you'll see, is the word what? Anybody get what that is? Curriculum. It's at the core. I've had some people say curriculum should be bigger, but I don't think so. Because it's the core, it's like a nucleus of something. It doesn't have to be big to be powerful. You know, it's a lot of energy. The curriculum is always fueling this. Service learning is curricular, and that's one of the distinctive differences between that and community service, right? Or just straight volunteerism. Around the curriculum is investigation. Students must investigate. I've had people say, well, we know we're going to do something on hunger. Why do we have to look any further? Why do we have to look further? Because kids need to know what's the hunger issue that's theirs. They need that ownership so that then they want to do more. Without that level of I own this, this is mine, we have to constantly keep prodding them and pushing them to do things. In between investigation and preparation, we do reflection. Reflection is at the end. It's ongoing. It's the connector. For investigation, we reflect and we arrive at preparation. Preparation is a lot of where your curriculum lives and where you're learning and thinking and doing all the work to get students really ready to do the important service they're going to do. Reflection, again, as they move to action. Action, as you'll see, has 4 different ways of looking at it. And I hope I wrote it in there. Yes. Direct, indirect advocacy and research. It look like those 4 things. Direct, indirect advocacy and research. And then that can feed right back to investigation. People say, well, why would it keep feeding back? Because when people do the action, sometimes they get another idea, and it leads them right back to figuring out what they're going to do next. It doesn't have to, but that's a dynamic that often can occur. Now, reflection is also summative. So you get the overview of reflection going on also, and underneath it, pairing it is the idea of demonstration. That we want demonstration to be what tells the story. So to tell the story, you've got to have the story. So where do we really start thinking about demonstration? At what stage? Where do we really want to start thinking about demonstration? At the very beginning. So that's what's great. And that's where you can bring in technology, photographs, video, blogging, all these things, capturing the story of what's going on at every stage, so at the end they've got a story to tell, something that really resonates. Within demonstration, you're welcome to celebrate, but it should be in the context of demonstration. These are the 5 stages of service learning. All right? If anybody's ideas to even make this better, let me know. If they could spin and dance, that might help. But otherwise, this is where I'm at right now. Because it's different. It's not a straight line. It's very exciting this way. Now, here's a quiz for you. If you were saying community service, just to make the difference really clear, where would community service start in this dynamic? I'm talking about more stereotypical community service. Which stage would start with if you were doing just community service? Yes? Preparation or action. Let's just get on the bus and go there and do something. I wish you would have more preparation. You have to back it up. And which part do the kids want to do the most?